Welcome to Worblock. This is a very quick video to show a new development feature that isn't actually even finished, but I'm so excited about it I thought I would just mention it. I'm not looking on this computer yet. Essentially we've got heights. Now I'm sort of talking about it now because I feel like it. But I'm not sure exactly how this is going to work out. But basically, we've got three heights. This is low, so this is lower. This is the regular stuff, and this is higher. So we've got terrain that is higher and lower. So we've got three elevation types. I want to keep it simple, and it's all based essentially on. Not sure whether to change that. It's all based essentially on overlaying an alpha gradient. So this is just like a 10% black, this is a 20% white over the top of whatever, so it makes it look lighter. So that's sort of that. The whole idea is that if you're in a lower terrain, anyone that's higher is normal or higher than you will be harder to attack. So in this instance, this would be a good ridge. There will be other areas where there will be pockets of higher ground. You might do it like that, so you can try to take higher ground. And the only problem comes to some extent is this is actually sort of more of a hilly area, and I was going to do it, and to be honest I might, but I don't think Lydia is renowned for its hills. But if I was to put a line of hills, if I was to put a line of hills sort of along here, all of a sudden you've got this high terrain, and then the hills would be normal terrain, so it appeared that the desert is higher than the hills. So I'm not sure what to do. I probably have to just put a set of rules in so that you can't go from hills to... I'd probably have to select the hills as higher, or just basically wing it. Now the other option I've got, and this is why I'm still sort of pausing for thought really, because this, just getting this far is sort of, an achievement in its own right, because I've had to sort of figure out how to apply this, how to do it, how to sort of put it into the mapping system, and so it's all quite reasonably done at the moment. But what I could do at this stage is actually allocate values. So instead of low, no value at all, and high, I could actually put everything at 50, 40, 30, 20, 10, or 60, 70, 80, 90, and that would actually allow me to actually almost apply contours. So I'm thinking, well, should I do that? Now, the only other things to sort of say at this stage is that it won't affect artillery in any way. I'm not going to do lines of sight because I can't. So the hills won't affect things for lines of sight, and I'm not really bothered. I assume that you can actually fire behind hills. I mean, I never really do anything that's more than less than a mile across. Sometimes I will, but so to be behind the hills here, you'd have to be there. There will be, if this was hilly area, there would be pockets where you could hide behind, and in theory there would be blind spots. So it's more strategic than a sort of tactical game where line of sight is important. So again, I'm not so fussed with that. So I think that should be okay, but I'm sort of trying to decide how I want to do it and what that would mean. And as far as I'm concerned, the only thing that it would mean is that you would have you would be better off forming a defensive line in this hex if your attacker is coming from this hex, and that's pretty much it. It's not going to give any other benefit. The only other thing I'm quite excited about is the fact that it just makes the map look more dimensional. At the moment, none of this does any different. None of this does anything. This is desert, this is desert, this is desert. It doesn't do anything, but it's given it that sort of dimension. So, for example, if we look at this, it's just flat. Now, the thing is, I think that this is a sort of valley. So I could make this higher and this higher, and it would actually look more like a map. So what I don't really want to do is to make it such an overwhelming concept that it changes the gameplay significantly. But anything that's higher, I think I'm going to give it a 10% bonus. I'm unsure as to whether or not to give a bonus if you're attacking below. I don't think I want to do that, and I don't think I'm going to. I think it's only really for defensive purposes. It's going to be sort of quite complex. So I've been meaning to do something like this for a long time. But so the thing is, if I do it by tens, it becomes a lot more complex, both game-wise, but also sort of conscious-wise. I mean, we can see this is more low, and I've only just done this because it's the coast, but it's lower. So the thing is, you could probably, put your troops along here. Now, you're not going to get a bonus in there, but they're not going to really be so readily able to attack out. They're going to get a bonus, so it suddenly makes things more significant. And from my experience playing this game through and through, I think that even a map as empty as the other one, even a map as empty as this, it forms its own strategy by, well, this would be pushing it, but it forms its own strategies by the way you put the units down. If you put them here, it doesn't matter essentially really what's what. Intricate geometries are conjured and are created, and I think it's fairly pedantic to sort of say, well, this is a really boring map, because of course it is a really boring map when you just look at it. But when you start playing any of these games, the dimensions are in the power held within the units themselves, and they create their own substance. And so, for example, in here, now this isn't finished, well, let's look at this one down here. I haven't done anything with it yet. It's this one here. You've already got some fairly complex lines. Now, there's no topography in this terrain, but already we've got dug-in features. We've got the sort of entrenchments, blockades. We've got the road networks, the path networks, but in particular we've got the sort of the dynamics that the actual units cause. So here we've got a line of units. Now let's not worry about them actually being dug in. Let's go and maybe look at this one. They are sort of dug in, but they create their own line. Now obviously it's a little more involved, but for example this line here, it does actually have its own dynamics. For example, you can't go there without having to stop. You can't go there without having to stop. So all of a sudden you've got these sort of fairly complex systems. Here the road is fairly significant because it allows you to go a little faster in that direction, etc., etc. I mean, something like this is probably irrelevant, but in theory, it sort of goes along like that. Now, adding the terrain, the topography feature, I think will just, what I'm saying is that I don't want it to overbalance what we've already got. So it'll be like putting a line randomly somewhere that gives you a plus 10% defensive bonus. Now the line will only affect the actual line where it changes. So, and I'm just talking off the top of my head here really at the moment, because I've only just done this. And for example, being there and being there is going to make no difference because you'll be in the same, the same spot. So that's sort of what I'm thinking at the moment. Obviously I can change things. To be quite honest, I think I'm just going to go with the 2, because one of the things that I do like about this, I'm not so keen on the white, but I might change that. I think I put in an additional hex on top of it, so that the hex itself doesn't look washed out. Here it looks okay, but that's probably because it's going darker and not lighter. But the thing is, I think even as an aesthetic, even as just a sort of a different value for the maps, it's sort of worth it. And I think that when it's applied in certain scenarios, it's going to have different results aesthetically and strategically. I don't like using the word tactically because I just don't see this as a tactical game, but to some extent it's all just about perspective, and tactics are probably something that are key to this game. But so even if we were to say it has no value, which it doesn't at the moment, I think it makes the maps look nicer. So I'm getting quite interested in that. I have been aware that the maps are sort of fairly well, in this one, for example, these shouldn't really be mountains. This is quite an important sort of thing, but these should be really just higher elevations than these. This is just rough terrain, and this is very rough terrain. So it's essentially it's going to give another dimension, but this does sort of appeal to some extent to me, etc., etc. So and I think the mapping is all part and parcel of it really, and the strength of the map I think is to some extent key to how a game is perceived, and the sort of the value of the experience that you get from it, even just looking at it. And so I think that this is going to take it to another level. I don't want to talk forever, but I'm still trying to decide whether or not I should just use the 2 values, keep it simple, so that you know that if it's lighter than the original, it's lower, if it's darker, it's higher, and not worry about shades. Or to actually really try and put something in there to give a full, the full scope of contours. And that's really sort of, tell by my pause there, I'm really sort of undecided, because I've got to decide now before I start to sort of crunch on and put the mechanics of how that would actually work. So anyway, that's as it stands at the moment. I've never said this before, but if you've got a comment, on what I've been talking about, and what I mean by what I'm talking about is, whether or not you think I should put in more contours, or just leave it like that, or if you understand you've got something to add to this discussion or this thought, put it in the comments, because I've never said this before, and I'm not fishing for comments, because I am actually literally at this moment trying to decide what to do. And this is why I'm doing the video. I am a bit excited, and sort of, maybe I should do the video before I finished it, but I am thinking aloud. So there's so many roads missing from there. There's that one. There's that one. There's definitely another one sort of there. So there's at least 3. There's that one, and that one. And there's probably more. Now, these are supposed to go sort of there. I mean, that's a fantastic road, isn't it? My favourite roads are roads that sort of go. There aren't any, but it would go like that. You get them, it goes like that, or like that, because they're so pointless. Because you can't actually even go anywhere on them. At least you can go from there to there in theory a little quicker. But if you were there, and the road went from there to there, it's completely useless. But that's something else. Anyway, I'll speak to you later and see how this pans out. Cheerio.